His Excellency Ambassador Qazi Imtiaz Hussain, Chairman, BIISS, Major General Muhammad Maqsudur Rahman, OSP, BSP, PSC, Director General, BISS, Nasima Begum, NDC, Honorable Chairman, National Human Rights Commission, Bangladesh, distinguished guests, participants, Honorable Members of Parliament, all members of BIISS, Assalamu alaikum, good morning, Shubho Shakal. It is indeed a great pleasure and very special honor for me to join the hybrid seminar on human rights in the 21st century, rhetoric and reality, organized by Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, BISS. I'm very happy to be here, and as I see from the program that there will be discussions on this by very distinguished panelists, and it will definitely generate a great deal of interest, enthusiasm, and proactive discussion from where we can all learn. This is the month of March, a very significant time in the life of the nation, and this is the month, on 26th of March, we will celebrate our Independence Day. At this auspicious moment, I would like to pay my tribute to our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and all the martyrs who laid down their lives, including our mothers and sisters, for their sacrifice in the emergence of Bangladesh as a sovereign country in the world map. Human rights is a very vast topic, and when I was requested to speak on this, I had to think about it, where to start, where to end, and what would be the succinct points that I could possibly share this morning with all of you. Respect for human rights is an essential tenet for maintenance of peaceful global order. It was in the backdrop of the widespread atrocities committed during the Second World War that fundamental human rights propelled to the center stage. Interwoven throughout the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UN Charter, it spelled out that promotion of universal respect for human rights would be vital in the creation of conditions of stability and well-being of nations. And there was wide consensus on this premise, which actually led to the adoption of Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. The Charter, UN Charter, recognizing and reaffirming its faith in its preamble in fundamental human rights, in dignity and worth of human person, in the equal rights of men and women, marked a watershed in the discourse of international human rights. While this is the international human rights framework, the treaty framework, where we find the concept of human rights, let me also touch upon the political philosophy of human rights that constitutes the bedrock of human rights, which even goes much before this. And we have to look at the 16th, 17th, 18th century to see how the concept of human right actually developed through that process. John Locke, a political thinker, conceived the idea of right as natural rights, God-given rights, divine rights in 1689. And he limited the list of rights to very short list: right to life, right to protection of life, liberty, and property. Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 expands the short or the brief list of Locke's rights to a longer list, such as right to free education, public medical care, etc. And today, if we look around, we will see that the concept of human right now actually denotes a much wider arena and includes many more rights than were initially thought or perceived by political thinkers. But there has been criticism of this expansion also. Critics have opined that rights list, if it is so long, then it may risk to become a wish list. It may just become not a claim, not something that you can get when you say that this is my right, but it may be just your desire if we stretch it too far. It is argued that this may lead to claiming rights in order to create them. Human rights exist and it ought to be recognized. This is the crux of the issue. We do not create human rights. Human rights exist and we only can recognize them. Claims to rights are demands that cannot be ignored as request or wish. So there is a clear distinction. When we are saying that this is a fundamental human right, then definitely it is not just a request or a wish list. It is much more than that. Demands for what are human rights have become the unchallengeable justification for a metastasis of entitlement. So there has to be justification for the claim and for that entitlement, and only then we can say that it is a right. To have a right is to have a standing to claim it. If we do not have the standing to claim it, and if nobody respects that claim, then we cannot say that that is a right. Ronald Dworkin, philosopher of law at the Oxford University, he explains in his very famous book, Taking Rights Seriously, that is the name of his book, where he explains, individual rights are political trumps held by individuals. Individuals have rights when, for some reason, a collective goal is not a sufficient justification for denying them what they wish as individuals to have or to do. So a collective goal may not be justification to override the claim of an individual. And if that is the case, then that is a right of the individual. Dworkin attributes to individuals rights to whatever they wish. He allows an individual's wish to be denied, but the burden of justifying that denial rests on us, and we must show that the right in question is not in the collective interest. So only in that case you can deny a right, but other than that you have to accept it. That is the Dworkin's way of looking at it. Now, the concept of human rights can be traced in Locke's concept of rights that existed in the state of nature, which he called the natural rights. Locke's reasoning was right to life, liberty, property existed in the state of nature. And that is what also we find in when we are talking about human rights, that it already exists. We don't create it, the state doesn't create it, the government doesn't give it to us. We already inherit that right. And Locke did not have, and Locke says that these rights, the rights which were generated, which already existed in the state of nature, did not have the protection of the government, nor were they created by the government. So Locke called them natural and said they were instituted by God, the creator of nature. But then again, there was a big criticism of Locke's discourse by Bentham, who never believed in natural rights, and He believed in positive empirical rights which are more evident, you can find and back it by evidence. However, those are the political discourse and different views from which we can trace how the rights have emerged. But this notion finds resemblance with the concept of human rights as we understand it. These human rights are the inherent, inalienable, and indivisible rights of all human beings. Human beings inherit these rights by virtue of being born as human, irrespective of nationality, sex, place of residence, ethnic origin, language, etc. So, the fact that you are born as a human being, you come with these rights: the right to life, the right to liberty, and many more. And these are the rights that nobody can take away from you without reasonable justification or grounds. Human rights are not absolute. They can be taken away, but it has to be subjected to reasonable restrictions. And every state is under an obligation to respect, promote, and uphold these rights. So that is the basic concept from where we can have an idea about what we mean when we talk about human rights. Now, in the context of our own country, Bangladesh, our constitution, which was promulgated in 1972 by our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, is a sterling example, which is the supreme law of the land, and it upholds human rights. Fundamental human rights are enshrined in Part 3 of our Constitution, and as you know that on his return to Bangladesh after independence for the first time on 10 January 1972, Father of the Nation, on 11 January, he declared the proclamation, the constitutional order under which the process of writing a constitution for an independent country started. So that itself signifies how much importance our Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu, attached to having a constitution for an independent country. And within the shortest possible time, within a time frame of 9 months, on 4th of November 1972, Bangladesh Constitution was passed in the Ganaparishad. And 16 December 1972, it came into force within a very short time. And if you go through the Constitution, it is absolutely clear that Bangladesh is committed in promoting and protecting human rights. Our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, Article 7, which is the pole star of our Constitution, where it says that all power of the Republic belong to the people. So people are sovereign, and all power emanates or generates from the people, which is exercised by the representatives who are elected to the parliament. So, Bangladesh Constitution upholds and cherishes the respect for human rights. Bangladesh has given shelter to 1.1 million Rohingya people whose human rights were gravely violated in their own country, Myanmar. And we are still having the Rohingya people in our country. And this is also another example of the respect for human rights that Bangladesh has been able to show to the world. Our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina spent maximum years of her life in her struggle for restoring democracy and upholding the rule of law and bringing back the constitutional rule again in Bangladesh. And therefore, she is an ardent promoter of human rights beyond question. Now, let me just conclude with today's topic, human rights, whether rhetoric or reality. An analysis of impact of fundamental human rights is likely to tilt the argument in favor of rhetoric, as rhetoric serves as a great tool for the politics to bring about or create a common terrain for diverse culture of all people. So when human rights are serving as a rhetoric, it serves the political purpose of bringing about convergence between the diverse culture of all people, because we live in a diverse world and we want to have an inclusive society. So, in 21st century, human rights must also be seen as instrumental in ensuring social stability, social justice, building block for upholding rule of law and good governance. Respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms must be seen as cardinal principle of promoting equality, gender equality, inclusiveness, and sustainable socio-economic development across diverse global societies. So it is very important to ensure respect for human rights, because to attain the other goals, we have to ensure respect for human rights. Thus, I want to emphasize human rights in 21st century is a rhetoric as much as a reality. Human rights as rhetoric can serve as an important tool in converging common grounds in diverse global order. It can be responsive in finding common grounds in diverse culture. Human rights in reality can be effective in maintaining international peace and order. I want to conclude with one of favorite quotes of mine, which is of Robert Kennedy. Quote, "Every time we turn our heads the other way when we see the law flouted, when we tolerate what we know to be wrong, when we close our eyes and ears to corrupt because we are too busy or too frightened, when we fail to speak up and speak out, we strike a blow against freedom and decency and justice." Unquote. So let us then apply this principle in any situation of violation of human rights to promote and uphold human rights for a peaceful international order. In my thesis on right to life, in my PhD, I ended with a quote which is very close to my heart, and I want to share that quote with you. Quote, "It is justice, not charity, that is wanting in the world." Unquote. Thank you for your patience. May Bangladesh live forever. Joy Bangla.